United States one-dime coins are among the most fascinating and collectible coins in American history. From early silver dimes to modern issues, certain rare and high-condition dimes are believed to hold extraordinary value. Collectors search for these small coins because rarity, condition, and history can turn an ordinary dime into a powerful asset. Often overlooked in daily life, dime coins represent hidden wealth, patience, and the possibility that a single discovery can change fortune overnight. The year 1924 sits quietly in American history, but for coin collectors, it whispers like a secret that refuses to die. Among the ordinary coins of that era, one dime has risen beyond metal and minting to become a legend wrapped in desire, speculation, and almost supernatural promise. This is not just a 10-cent piece. It is a symbol of forgotten wealth, a coin people believe could rewrite destiny overnight if discovered in the right condition. In the early 20th century, dimes were struck for everyday use, passed through hands that never imagined they might one day be worth more than gold bars. Yet time has a strange way of transforming the common into the extraordinary. The 1924 dime, especially when imagined in flawless preservation, has become a canvas onto which collectors project dreams of unimaginable fortune and silent power. Collectors speak of this coin as if it carries a hidden pulse. The idea is simple but intoxicating. If a 1924 dime survived untouched by circulation, spared from scratches, wear, and careless handling, it could stand as a perfect time capsule. Perfection in old coins is rarer than rarity itself, and rarity multiplied by perfection is where legends are born. The fascination grows because 1924 was a year of transition. America was changing, industry was expanding, and money flowed freely through streets, factories, and homes. Millions of dimes were minted, but only a microscopic fraction could ever remain pristine across a century. That possibility fuels a belief that somewhere, perhaps forgotten in a drawer or sealed in a box, one still waits. The coin's power and imagination comes from condition. A worn dime tells a story of survival, but a flawless dime tells a story of preservation against impossible odds. Collectors value such survival, not only in dollars, but in awe. A perfectly preserved 1924 dime would represent defiance of time itself. Over the years, stories have grown larger than the coin. Some say elite collectors would compete fiercely, driving prices into the millions for a single example that meets mythical standards. Whether these stories are exaggerated or not hardly matters, because belief itself creates value in the collector world. Coins are more than metal. They are trust frozen in form. When trust ages into history, it becomes priceless. The 1924 dime is imagined as a key, small enough to hide in a pocket, powerful enough to unlock a future no one expects. That is why people say never rush to sell, never underestimate what you hold. The dream intensifies because dimes are overlooked. People search for gold coins and silver dollars, yet ignore the smallest denominations. That neglect adds to the fantasy that life-changing wealth might hide in plain sight, unnoticed for generations, waiting for a moment of recognition. There is also the human hunger for sudden transformation. The idea that a single object could turn an ordinary person into a millionaire overnight is irresistible. The 1924 dime fits perfectly into this narrative because it looks harmless, ordinary, almost invisible. Coin history is filled with moments when assumptions collapsed. Items once dismissed later commanded astonishing sums. This historical pattern feeds a belief that the next shocking discovery is always possible. The 1924 dime becomes a symbol of that hope. Collectors often say the real value is not just the auction price, but the silence in a room when such a coin appears. Silence means respect. Silence means disbelief. Silence means everyone understands they are witnessing something irreplaceable. The myth grows stronger when tied to inheritance. Many imagine a grandparent unknowingly preserving such a coin, passing it down without understanding its future power. That emotional connection adds another invisible layer of value beyond metal and mint. Condition, again, is everything. Any scratch erases part of the dream. Anywhere breaks the spell. That is why the idea of a perfect 1924 dime feels almost supernatural, as if protected by fate rather than chance. Time itself becomes the antagonist in this story. Every year that passes makes survival less likely, which paradoxically makes belief stronger. Rarity grows not because fewer were made, but because fewer can still exist unchanged. Collectors who chase such legends are not foolish. They are storytellers. They chase possibility, not certainty. The 1924 dime lives in that space between what is proven and what is dreamed, where imagination inflates value beyond logic. Some say if you ever find such a coin, patience matters more than excitement. The true mistake would not be losing it, but underestimating it. History rewards those who wait, especially in the world of rare coins. The phrase "don't spend it" becomes almost sacred. Spending would mean breaking the spell, returning magic to metal. Holding it preserves possibility, and possibility is where fortunes are born. Even if the $1,000,000 versions exist only in extreme imagination, the belief itself shapes markets, conversations, and collector behavior. In collectibles, belief often arrives before proof. The 1924 dime stands as a reminder that value is not always loud or heavy. Sometimes it is small, quiet, and hidden. That truth keeps people searching pockets, jars, and old boxes with hope in their hands. In the end, this coin is not just about money. It is about time, chance, and the human desire to believe that destiny can be changed by something as small as a dime. That belief is why the legend survives and why the 1924 dime continues to glow in collector imagination like a secret waiting to be unlocked. The year 1925 stands quietly in American history, yet within the world of rare coins it carries an echo that refuses to fade. Among the ordinary dimes struck for daily trade, one imagined version of the 1925 dime has grown into a symbol of impossible wealth. It is spoken of not as a coin, but as a turning point, something small enough to overlook, yet powerful enough to alter a life forever. In that era, dimes were made to be spent, not saved. They moved quickly from mint to market, from pocket to pocket, wearing away their sharp details with every transaction. That is why the idea of a perfectly preserved 1925 dime feels almost unreal, as if time itself briefly forgot to touch it. Collectors believe true value is born where survival meets perfection. A 1925 dime that escaped circulation would represent more than silver and design. It would represent resistance against a century of erosion, loss, and human carelessness. That resistance is what fuels the belief that such a coin could be worth millions. The imagination surrounding this dime grows stronger because it comes from an age of movement. America in 1925 was alive with speed, industry, and ambition. Money flowed constantly, making untouched coins almost mythical. The fewer that survive in perfect form, the greater the hunger to find one. Stories circulate in collector circles about coins hidden away without intention, forgotten in sealed containers, tucked into personal keepsakes, or locked inside family possessions never open again. The 1925 dime becomes a hero of these stories, a silent witness waiting for rediscovery. Condition is everything in this legend. Even the smallest mark can reduce a coin's magic. But flawless surface, sharp details, and untouched luster elevate it beyond currency into artifact. At that level, value is no longer measured logically. It is driven by desire. The phrase "don't sell too quickly" echoes strongly whenever this coin is mentioned. The belief is that rushing to cash out is a true mistake, because the greatest wealth lies not in immediate money, but in understanding what you hold. Knowledge turns metal into power. People are drawn to the idea that such life-changing wealth could hide in something so ordinary. A dime feels harmless, insignificant. That contrast makes the legend stronger. The smaller the object, the greater the shock when its value is revealed. The 1925 dime represents a kind of quiet rebellion against expectation. It challenges the belief that fortune must be loud, heavy, or obvious. Instead, it suggests that destiny might arrive unnoticed, disguised as something familiar. Coin history is filled with moments when the overlooked became priceless. These moments feed the belief that the next discovery is always possible. The 1925 dime lives inside that hope, growing larger in imagination with every passing year. Collectors do not chase certainty. They chase possibility. The imagined $1,000,000 1925 dime exists in that space between reality and dream. That space is where legends are born and markets are shaped. There is also emotion tied to inheritance. Many imagine such a coin passed down unknowingly, resting in family hands for generations without anyone realizing its potential. That emotional weight adds invisible value beyond price. Time plays a strange role here. Every year that passes without discovery increases a belief that if one does surface, it must be extraordinary. Age does not just add years. It adds pressure, rarity, and fascination. The idea of becoming wealthy overnight is not just about money. It is about escape, transformation, and proof that life can change without warning. The 1925 dime fits perfectly into that fantasy. Even skepticism feeds a legend. Doubt creates debate. Debate creates attention, and attention creates desire. In the collector world, desire often matters more than metal content or face value. Silence surrounds truly powerful collectibles. When such an item appears, conversation stops. That imagined silence is what people associate with a perfect 1925 dime. Respect without words. The warning not to spend it lightly becomes almost spiritual. Spending would mean erasing history, collapsing possibility back into ordinary currency. Holding preserves hope, and hope has value. Coins like this become mirrors. People see in them what they want most: security, freedom, recognition, or surprise fortune. The 1925 dime reflects all of that. Whether or not such a coin exists exactly as imagined, the belief itself shapes behavior. People search, preserve, and study because belief keeps the hunt alive. In the end, the 1925 dime is less about certainty and more about imagination. It reminds us that value is not always visible, and that sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest dreams. That is why collectors say, if you ever find a 1925 dime that feels untouched by time, pause. Do not rush. Do not underestimate it. Because history has shown that fortunes are not always found. They are sometimes recognized. The year 1930 arrived during a moment of uncertainty in the United States, a time when money carried more meaning than numbers alone. In that atmosphere, the humble dime was not just currency, it was survival. Yet hidden within that ordinary flow of daily life, the idea of a single 1930 dime rising to unimaginable value has become one of the most captivating legends in coin history. This dime was never meant to be special. It was created to move quickly, to be spent without thought, to disappear into commerce. That is precisely why the belief surrounding a perfectly preserved 1930 dime feels so powerful. When something designed to vanish instead survives untouched, it becomes extraordinary. Collectors imagine this coin as a quiet rebel against time. While millions were worn smooth by years of use, a flawless example would stand apart, sharp and unchanged, as if sealed away by fate itself. That resistance to time is where imagination transforms metal into fortune. The fascination deepens because 1930 was not an easy year. People spent what they had, saved little, and focused on survival. The odds of a dime remaining untouched through such an era feel almost impossible, and impossibility is what fuels legend. In collector circles, rarity alone is never enough. Condition is the true king. A 1930 dime with no wear, no scars, no story of circulation would not just be rare. It would be miraculous. Miracles command attention, and attention creates value that logic cannot contain. The stories that surround such a coin grow larger with every retelling. Some imagine it hidden away unintentionally, tucked into a personal possession and forgotten. Others believe it waited silently in darkness, protected by chance, waiting for the right moment to reappear. What makes this dime so powerful in imagination is its size. It is small, easy to overlook, easy to underestimate. That contrast between appearance and potential creates emotional shock, the kind that turns curiosity into obsession. The phrase, "don't sell it cheaply," carries deep meaning here. It is not just advice, it is a warning. Selling too fast means trading possibility for certainty. In the world of legendary coins, possibility is often worth more. The 1930 dime represents the dream that wealth does not always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in places people stop looking. That idea keeps collectors searching, not just for coins, but for hope. Coin history thrives on moments when expectations collapse. Items once ignored later become untouchable treasures. These moments shape belief, and belief keeps the legend of the 1930 dime alive. Collectors are not merely buyers. They are believers. They understand that value is built from rarity, condition, story, and emotion combined. The imagined $1,000,000 1930 dime carries all four. There's also a deep emotional pull connected to inheritance. Many imagine such a coin passed through generations without recognition, waiting for someone who understands its true weight in history. Time adds pressure to the story. Every year that passes without discovery makes the idea stronger. Survival becomes less likely and therefore more powerful. Time does not weaken the legend, it sharpens it. The dream of becoming wealthy overnight is not really about money. It is about transformation. The 1930 dime symbolizes the possibility that life can change without warning, without effort, without permission. Even doubt feeds a fire. Skeptics argue, believers defend, and the conversation grows. In collectibles, conversation itself adds value. Silence kills interest, but debate fuels desire. A truly legendary coin is said to change the air in a room. When revealed, it demands quiet. That imagined silence is what collectors associate with a perfect 1930 dime. The warning not to spend it lightly becomes almost sacred. Spending would erase history, collapse wonder into routine. Holding preserves magic, and magic has its own currency. This dime becomes a mirror for human desire. People see in it freedom, security, surprise, and validation. The coin reflects dreams more than faces. Whether such a coin exists exactly as imagined is less important than what it represents. Belief shapes behavior, and behavior shapes markets. That is how legends gain power. The 1930 dime stands as proof that value is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet, patient, and waiting. If you ever hold a 1930 dime that feels untouched by time, the greatest mistake would be rushing. Pause. Understand. Because history has shown again and again that fortunes are not always earned. They are sometimes discovered. The year 1931 stands like a shadowed doorway in American history, a time when uncertainty pressed heavily on every pocket, and every coin carried more weight than its face value suggested. In that tense atmosphere, the dime of 1931 was born ordinary, unnoticed, and destined to be spent without hesitation. Yet imagination has transformed this simple coin into one of the most powerful symbols of hidden wealth ever whispered about among collectors. This dime was never created to be treasured. It was designed for movement, for exchange, for survival. People clutched coins tightly in 1931, spending only when necessary, which makes the idea of a perfectly preserved dime from this year feel almost impossible. Impossibility, however, is the soil where legends grow strongest. Collectors imagine the 1931 dime as a silent survivor, one that escaped hardship hands, and where while countless others were rubbed smooth by desperation. In that survival, they see defiance, not just a time, but a history itself. A coin that avoided circulation during such a year feels almost chosen. Condition becomes the heartbeat of this story. A war 1931 dime tells a common tale of struggle, but flawless one tells a story of mystery. Sharp edges, untouched surfaces, and preserved brilliance elevated beyond currency into something closer to myth. The belief that such a dime could be worth millions does not come from logic alone. It comes from rarity layered upon circumstance. When a coin from a harsh year survives untouched, collectors do not see metal, they see miracle. Stories form naturally around such an idea. Some imagine it hidden unintentionally, sealed away with personal belongings, forgotten during a time when survival mattered more than saving. Others believe it waited patiently, protected by chance, waiting for a future that could recognize its worth. What makes the 1931 dime especially powerful in imagination is its contradiction. It comes from a year of scarcity, yet it represents abundance. It was small and humble, yet it carries dreams of instant transformation. The warning not to sell quickly echoes loudly in these stories. The belief is that haste destroys potential. Knowledge, patience, and restraint are seen as the true keys to unlocking a coin's destiny. The 1931 dime symbolizes the idea that wealth does not always announce itself. Sometimes it hides quietly, blending into the background until someone looks closely enough to see its true nature. Coin history thrives on moments when overlooked objects suddenly command respect. These moments reshape how people think about value. The imagined rise of the 1931 dime fits perfectly into this pattern. Collectors chase stories as much as objects. They understand that emotion, mystery, and belief are as important as metal content. The 1931 dime carries all three in abundance. There is also the emotional weight of inheritance woven into this legend. Many imagine the coin passed down unknowingly, resting in family hands for decades, its potential sleeping until the right moment. Time strengthens the story rather than weakens it. Every year that passes without discovery adds tension. Survival becomes rarer, and rarity magnifies desire. The fantasy of becoming wealthy overnight is not about greed alone. It is about relief, freedom, and the hope that life can change without warning. The 1931 dime becomes a vessel for that hope. Even disbelief adds fuel. Arguments, doubts, and debates keep the legend alive. In the world of collectibles, attention itself creates momentum. A truly legendary coin is said to command silence when revealed. That imagined stillness, the pause before recognition, is what collectors associate with a perfect 1931 dime. The phrase, "do not spend it," becomes almost sacred. Spending would collapse magic into routine, erase history, and trade wonder for certainty. This dime becomes a mirror for human longing. People see in it escape from struggle, proof of luck, and the promise of unexpected reward. Whether such a coin exists exactly as imagined matters less than what it represents. Belief drives search. Search drives preservation, and preservation shapes markets. The 1931 dime stands as a reminder that value is not always loud or visible. Sometimes it waits quietly, disguised as something ordinary. If you ever encounter a 1931 dime that feels untouched by time, the greatest mistake would be rushing. Pause, reflect, and understand, because history has shown that fortunes are not always built slowly. Sometimes they are discovered in silence. The year 1936 holds a unique place in American memory, a moment when the nation was trying to steady itself and regain confidence after years of uncertainty. Money during this time was more than currency. It was reassurance, hope, and survival combined. Out of this atmosphere emerged the humble 1936 dime, a small coin never meant to carry dreams of unimaginable wealth, yet destined in imagination to become something far greater. This dime entered the world as ordinary metal, pressed with purpose but without ceremony. It passed into circulation quietly, exchanged for bread, newspapers, and necessities. No one stopped to admire it. That neglect is exactly what later transforms it into legend, because true myths are born from what people fail to notice. Collectors imagine the perfect 1936 dime as a contradiction of its time. While millions were worn thin by constant use, a flawless example would stand apart as if shielded from history itself. Such survival feels unnatural, and that sense of impossibility is what gives a coin its magnetic power. Condition becomes the soul of this story. A scratched or faded dime speaks of struggle, but an untouched one speaks of mystery. Sharp edges, unbroken surfaces, and preserved brilliance elevate it from money into relic. At that level, value stops following rules and begins following desire. The belief that a 1936 dime could reach values in the millions does not come from face value or logic. It comes from imagination layered over rarity and time. When a small object survives where it should not, people see destiny rather than chance. Stories grow easily around such a coin. Some imagine it sealed away accidentally, hidden in personal belongings during a move or a moment of distraction. Others believe it rested undisturbed for decades, waiting silently for recognition it never asked for. What makes this dime so powerful in legend is its size. It is easy to ignore, easy to dismiss, easy to underestimate. That contrast between appearance and imagined worth creates shock, and shock is what fuels obsession among collectors. The phrase, "do not sell it cheaply," becomes almost a warning pass from one believer to another. The idea is that impatience destroys miracles. To rush is to trade potential for comfort, and legends are never comfortable. The 1936 dime represents a dream that fortune does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it hides, sometimes it waits, sometimes it disguises itself as something ordinary until the right moment arrives. Coin history thrives on moments when forgotten objects suddenly command respect. These moments rewrite assumptions and reward patience. The imagined rise of the 1936 dime fits perfectly into this tradition of surprise. Collectors are not just buyers, they are storytellers. They understand that belief, emotion, and scarcity combine to create value. The 1936 dime carries all three like an invisible signature. Inheritance deepens the legend. Many imagine such a coin passed down unknowingly, resting in family hand for generations while its potential slept. That emotional weight adds meaning beyond money. Time sharpens the story rather than dulling it. Every passing year, without discovery, increases tension. Survival becomes less likely, and that rarity strengthens belief. The fantasy of becoming wealthy overnight is not just about riches. It is about freedom, relief, and proof that life can change without warning. The 1936 dime becomes a vessel for that hope. Even skepticism feeds the myth. Doubt sparks debate. Debate draws attention, and attention creates desire. In the collector world, desire is a powerful currency. A truly legendary coin is said to command silence when revealed. That imagined pause, the moment before understanding, defines how people picture a perfect 1936 dime entering the light. The warning not to spend it becomes almost sacred. Spending would collapse wonder into routine, erase history, and turn magic back into metal. This dime becomes a mirror for human longing. People see an escape from struggle, validation of patience, and the promise of unexpected reward. Whether such a coin exists exactly as imagined matters less than what it represents. Belief shapes behavior, and behavior shapes markets. That is how legends gain power. The 1936 dime reminds us that value is not always heavy, loud, or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet, light, and waiting. It teaches that history does not always reward effort alone. Sometimes it rewards awareness, restraint, and timing. If you ever encounter a 1936 dime that feels untouched by time, the greatest mistake would be haste. Pause, understand, and protect it, because history has shown again and again that fortunes are not always earned slowly. Sometimes they arrive silently, disguised as a dime,